Hello friends, welcome to another episode of the Rifle Cherry channel. Today we're going to do some rifle testing. Four kind of, well, similar rifles, but very different rifles. We're going to be testing the Tikka ARCTIC, the Tikka CTR, and both in 308 by the way. We're also going to be testing the Howa Mountain Alpine, also in 308, and we're going to be comparing them to the No. 4 Mark II Lee Enfield, made by the Royal Ordnance Factory. Why am I including a Lee Enfield? That seems to be kind of out of place with those other three rifles. Well, I wanted to have something that also had open sights to contrast against the Tikka ARCTIC, so I'm including that rifle in the mix, even though it's in 303 British. Really, honestly, 308 Winchester versus 303 British, they are a bit different, but they're kind of similar too, if you know what I mean. So I think it kind of falls within the genre to a certain extent. Obviously, much older technology, but let's see how it does against some of this modern technology. You might be surprised by the results. There's going to be several tests as we make our way down through the day. It is bitching hot today. It's around 35 degrees Celsius. I've actually shot the course of fire already, but I'm drenched with sweat right now. But stay tuned. This is probably something that my subscribers are into, so stick around and have a watch. Cheers. A little bit difficult to lift the bolt on this Hertenberg 7.62 NATO. It sure is light. I mean, you definitely get whacked a lot more than the Tikka. Tikka. Some people get offended if I say it one way or the other. Okay, here we go. Here's the first group with the CTR. That was nothing, that's not very special. I wasn't happy with that. I know the rifle can do better. So I shot group number 2 with the CTR, and that's about 1.25 inches. It's just over an inch maybe. This here was the Howa Mountain Alpine. This is me zeroing. This is group number 1. Okay, I gotta change my scope setting. So I made an adjustment. Number 2, just to get it closer. It's not perfect, but it's closer. And then here is me shooting the Howa for grouping, and that's about a 2-inch group. Over here, with the ARCTIC, again, it's shooting it almost exactly the same. as the CTR. The Arctic is here. And this was actually the Arctic right here. I blew that shot. I knew that I did, and so that I axed that one out. Human error happens all the time. And here is the Lee Enfield. That's about a 3-inch group, and that's, I didn't bother shooting any more than that because that's pretty standard. This is like a traditionally bedded Lee Enfield. It's about a 3-minute of angle rifle. All of these shots, all of these groups are 100 meters. So this is what we're getting for accuracy using Hertenberg 1983 7.62 NATO. This here, the Enfield was shot with 180 grain Campro bullets, 303 British. And I'm only shooting the 303 British to give you kind of a comparison from rifles that are shooting open sights. That's exceptional. That's an exceptional grouping for a rifle with open sights. But because I've been shooting open sights for so long, it's essentially no different than the CTR at 100 meters. The scope on here was set at 4 power. This is the CMR Hilux 1:4 by 24 millimeter, 30 millimeter tube, and half-minute adjustment here on the turrets. It has really cool, I think it's called the ASCC reticle. And in many ways, actually, the sight picture on the Tikka CTR is kind of similar to the reticle that's on this scope. So that's kind of cool. It draws your eye to the center of the sight picture, so that's good. I like the sights on the CTR for that reason. Oh man, I'm sweating here. It is so hot today. Okay, so let's do a rapid fire serial. Okay, so here's the relay. 5 rounds, reload, 5 rounds. So for the Tikka CTR and the Tikka ARCTIC, I'm just going to borrow magazine from each loaded with 5 rounds. And for the Enfield, I'll just have 5 rounds loaded in the magazine, and I'll use a stripper clip because I've only got the one magazine. I'm not sure which one's going to be faster. I guess we'll see. And we're shooting in a target that's 25 meters away. That sucker right there. Let's do it. Okay. Well, we're only going to do this test with the Arctic because I'm going to make the assumption that the CTR is going to be just as fast. They're essentially the same rifle, same magazines. So, with a view to conserving ammunition, I'll only do it with the Arctic. Okay, and compare with the Enfield. I'll also do it with the Howa, but I think we already kind of know how that one's going to work out. Tikka ARCTIC, load and make ready. Should I use a sling? Nah, no sling. Okay, time will start when the first shot goes off. There may have been 2 misses there. But I'm burning through the ammunition pretty fast. All of the ammunition is roughly 1.5 meters to the rear and to the right. And a nice little pile, it's about 50 centimeters, 60 centimeters across. Okay, let's do the Enfield. Alright, here's the Enfield. I got 5 rounds of FMJ loaded, and I'll reload with 5 rounds of soft point. We'll just compare the difference of cratering on the mild grade steel that I'm shooting at. Well, just try new things. See what the difference is between, the ammunition types. Hopefully I'll hit more than 8 rounds on the target. This is like rapid fire. There's not a lot of aiming involved here, okay? Okay. Yeah, trying to get that magazine in my pocket, it was not effective. Let's do this. Okay, it was a bit slow to start, but we got all 10 rounds on the target this time. Which one won, the Enfield or the Arctic? I'm not sure. We'll have to figure out the times afterwards. Okay, here we go with the Howa Mountain Alpine in 308. Here we go. Well. Okay, you can see I'm struggling a little bit with it, right? Woo, she's cooking. Starting with the lightest, the Howa Mountain Alpine. And 308, this particular model, without sling, weighs in at 7 pounds 6 ounces. Nice little pencil barrel there. Benser composite stock. It does have the floor plate. And that is that 7 pounds 6 ounces includes the scope. In this case, a 1-inch tube, 4 to 12 by 40, I believe it is. A Bushnell Ultra Legend, great scope with a DOA reticle in it. I love it. This here is not so much of a recoil pad, not quite a hockey puck. It's got a little bit of, squishiness to it. But the Howa Mountain Alpine, I love this rifle. Love it, love it, love it. The next rifle, and this is the weight is without the sling on this one, is the Tikka ARCTIC. The Tikka ARCTIC weighs in at 8 pounds 14 ounces with magazine but no sling. That's 8 pounds 14 ounces. The Tikka ARCTIC, laminated wood stock, open sights, and in this case, that is actually a nice little recoil pad. It does actually give a little bit. Third heaviest rifle today is actually tied. The number 4 Mark II of the Enfield weighs in at 9 pounds 5 ounces. However, that does include the sling in this case. In this case, we're talking about a number 4 Mark II made in 1955. It is a contract. It is an Irish contract rifle. 9 pounds 5 ounces. And also at 9 pounds 5 ounces, including a scope, is the Tikka CTR. With the A2 arrestor on there. The scope today is the Hilux CMR 1 to 4 by 24. Great scope, I love it. So, just some basic stats on it to just give you the weights. But ultimately, what you also need to consideration is obviously the cost. The Howell Mountain Alpine I acquired used for $1,200. They don't make them anymore, so you can't buy them new. You can only buy them used now. No longer in production. It's really too bad because it's essentially a custom made rifle. So that retails for $1,200 Canadian used. Alright, so I'm not sure what they would have cost brand new. You can't get them anymore. Of course, on top of that, you need to get the ring. This one's got some Tele lightweight rings and a pretty conventional 1-inch scope on it. That being as it may, that's probably in the neighborhood of around $1,500 to $1,600 complete with a kind of fairly common scope, but a good quality scope. The CTR comes in at around, after taxes, brand new, right around $3,000. Wow, $3,000. So I mean, that is an incredibly high price tag. Okay, but it is what it is. The Tikka ARCTIC is a $3,000 rifle after taxes if you buy it brand new. Obviously, you can get them for around $2,300 used. The CTR here is essentially a $1,300 rifle. Sure, I've got a little bit of expense here to get, with the crush washer and the A2 arrestor, and of course the rings and the scope. You're probably in the $2,000 range. However, you can generally retail get them for around $1,300 plus taxes before the cost of a scope, because the rifle is incomplete without a scope because there are no sights on it. So $1,300 plus tax plus whatever accessories you intend to bolt onto it. So in this case, probably $1,500, $1,600. But essentially, you can buy 2 CTRs for the price of 1 Arctic. Is it worth it? Well, we're going to just shoot some tests today and find out. And lastly, the Enfield here. The Lee Enfield, these are really coming up in price. These are essentially unissued as new rifles, and they're starting to become highly pricey. And so generally I'm seeing these go between $1,500 and $2,000. Okay, so that's kind of giving you a little bit of a ballpark average. So, but again, you can essentially buy 2 of these for the price of 1 Arctic, kind of idea. Okay, so I mean, ultimately, is the Arctic worth it? Let's do it. So for the ergonomics of the Lee Enfield rifle, in this case the number 4 Mark II, the balance point when you're in the trail carry position is right over the action screw. Okay, so the trail carry position is right here, and that's actually fairly convenient. You don't want it to be too far forward, too far back, but that's kind of almost right in the middle of the rifle. Other ergonomic considerations is when you're in the shooting position and you're utilizing the sling, is that your hand fits quite nicely there. Just the forward slant or curvature or angle of the magazine really helps as kind of a hand stop. So you can really bind down on that sling when you're using it as a support. I got cottonwood fluff everywhere. So quite ergonomically correct for somebody that's shooting with open sights. I think they're great. Ergonomically fantastic rifle. The balance point on the CTR is right over the magazine. So for the trail carry position, it is awful. It is awful for the ergonomics of carrying the rifle. You can just kind of squeeze or pinch right over top of the receiver, but ultimately it's right on the magazine and you can't get your hand around it. So it's essentially an armpit kind of hand grab forward of the magazine to kind of control it, right? But there's no particular, I mean, you can't hold it like the Lee Enfield because the muzzle wants to go up. So the one-handed carry, it's not possible. Ergonomically, for shooting with a sling, it's not quite as good as the Lee Enfield because you don't have an angled magazine. It's basically a square. So you're kind of getting your hand in there like so. It's still the same kind of idea, but it's nowhere near as comfortable to shoot as the Lee Enfield. Sorry, Tikka, but the Lee Enfield score is higher on the ergonomics. The Howell Mountain Alpine is Does have a fairly decent one-handed carry, and it's basically right on the floor plate. Most typical conventional hunting rifles, you can almost always see the bluing worn off in this area here, just forward of the floor plate. Sweaty hands, acidic sweat and so on. It has a tendency to wear off the bluing. These being stainless steel, which has actually been Cerakoted, it will probably still get some kind of wear there. It's got a nice little Howa logo right there. But the ergonomics are just fine for a one-handed carry. So far as having it in a shooting position with a sling support, it's no problems whatsoever. There's no obstacle to get in the way of your hand, being an internal magazine instead of a detachable box magazine. Maybe even more so ergonomic than the Lee Enfield, simply because it's, well, 6 pounds. And that's a big huge deal. That's a big huge deal. So far as ergonomics are concerned, the Howa probably just inches out in front of the Lee Enfield. And the Tikka and the CTR, well, let's look at the CTR. Okay, so the CTR is essentially an Arctic, okay? The ergonomics are the same, but I would almost say that you could actually do a one-handed carry with the CTR, whereas you can't with the Arctic. Maybe it's got something to do with the lighter stock, plus with the scope kind of centralizing the weight. These are not lightweight scopes, mind you, but the scope does allow you to have a one-handed carry. It's not quite got the heavy stock to want to raise your muzzle to the sky. Okay, so there is a variation between the CTR and the Arctic, and in this case, the CTR beats the Arctic for ergonomics one-handed carry. There's no difference whatsoever so far as slinging it, because it's still the same location that your left hand is going to be. If you're going to be shooting forward like that, then you're not going to be able to really use the skeletal structure of your body to support the firearm. But in a snap shooting where you're just using 100% muscle to support the firearm, that's fine. But if you want to be doing a kind of a deliberate, where you're just using as much precision and accuracy as possible, you can do it, but it's nowhere near as comfortable as the Lee Enfield. Sights on the Tikka ARCTIC are fantastic. However, I've never been a big fan of the H&K style, what is it, G3 style rear sight. They are, if you got sweaty hands, they are difficult to turn, so you really need to get your fingers in there and well forward of the rifle. You can't just do it from the side. So I had to paint the numbers in there so I could see in low light conditions which number it is. I will say though is that even though there is adjustability from 1 to 600 meters, those are calibrated for a 180 grain bullet moving at roughly 2,500 feet per second. And so that's not really calibrated for any other bullet weight. So if you want to be running a light ball or M80 or something like that, 145 to 150 grain bullets, the sight isn't really made for you. So that's a bit of a bummer. So it's limited because of the ammunition. Now you even may be running a certain type of 308 180 grain ammunition that doesn't have the same formulation, doesn't have the same velocity, and so you're kind of limited as to what your firing solution can be with this sighting system. I do love the sight picture. The sight picture is incredible. I love it. That's a very, very broad front sight. It is round. It's a round post, similar to a Mosin-Nagant front sight, but it is a smaller diameter than a Mosin-Nagant front sight. I'd say it was maybe even just a little bit fatter than a number 4 Mark I Lee Enfield front sights, blade front sights. But not bad overall. Number 4 sights are excellent. The aperture, you have a battle sight, which is calibrated here. That's calibrated for shooting at 300 yards. you essentially start at 200 yards here on your rear sight, and with, I believe that they're half-minute adjustments, half-minute clicks. Somebody may correct me on that if I'm wrong. But essentially what I can do with this sight is have a custom sight setting depending on the kind of ammunition that I'm running. So really, honestly, this is a better rear sight than the Tikka ARCTIC, because you're not boxed into whatever formulation of ammunition the rifle was built around. And there's beautiful sight tools for adjusting the some beautiful front sight tools that you can acquire to surgically with precision adjust your the location of your front sight for windage adjustments. And it's just better sighting system. It's and it's robust, it works, and I love it. So the number 4 Enfields, man, they really beat out the Tikka ARCTIC in my opinion. Triggers. This rifle is unloaded. Well, it's loaded with a magazine, but there's no ammunition in the rifle. Triggers on the Lee Enfield is about a 3-pound first pull and a 5 to 6 pound second pull. 2-stage military trigger. And it is, I love them. I love the triggers on these rifles. I've never had any problems with them. Especially with the number 4 Mark II, wherein the trigger is hung from the receiver rather than from the trigger guard. It's just a better trigger system overall. And yeah, okay, it's not a nice lightweight 3.5 pound trigger, but it's a beautiful trigger. It's nice and crisp. It's not gritty. It's nice and smooth from the first transition to the second transition. And I have no problem with this. It's a mil-spec trigger system designed to be covered in mud, gore, and compromised by water, and still work. Made for the combat soldier. The trigger on the Tikka ARCTIC is a real treat. Sorry, I'm sweating on the rifle here. It is a 2-stage trigger. There is a first and second stage pull on it. So the first stage is probably 1.5 pounds. Bit springy. Lots of take up there. And the second is, I'm going to say probably a 4-pound trigger. Maybe 3.5. But it's not particularly a lightweight trigger, and the lock time is pretty fast. So when it's tripped, when the sear is tripped, the firing pin hits pretty fast. Nowhere near as fast as a Henry Martini, but fast enough. And it's a 2-stage trigger, which is really, really nice. That was part of the Human Factors Requirements Survey. Canadian Rangers wanted a 2-stage trigger, and they got it. The Howell Mountain Alpine was a real surprise for me, but it also has a 2-stage trigger. The first pull is a little bit lighter than the CTR. Second pull is about the same as the CTR, maybe 3.5 to 4 pounds, and very nice and crisp. There's no creep. There's no. It's beautiful. It's an awesome trigger. I put it on par with the Tikka CTR. The trigger on the CTR is very nice. It's not a 2-stage trigger. In fact, it's the only rifle of the bunch that we've tested today that has a single-stage trigger. And honestly, 3.5 to 4 pounds, no creep, no problems. But ultimately, which one has the nicest trigger? You know, I'd say it's probably, I'd put the Howa, the Arctic, and the CTR as an even tie. And the Lee Enfield, being it is a probably a 5 to 6 pound heavy second stage, it's definitely heavier and will have an impact on your overall accuracy. Okay, so what did you think? If you had to pick between let's say money wasn't let's say money was not a limiting factor for you. Which rifle would you get? Which rifle would you get, and what would you use it for? Would it be your general purpose rifle? Do you think a general purpose rifle should have a scope? Do you think a general purpose rifle should have open sights? So there's that. How fast do you want to be able to do your reloads for a general purpose rifle? Or is it just going to be used as a conventional hunting rifle where really no more than 5 rounds is needed? So those are all kinds of things that you got to kind of contrast against some of these different rifles, because they're different. They're similar, but they're different. And which rifle would you choose? Let me know in the comments down below. For me, probably because of my familiarity with it, and you know, I have a firing solution for targets out to 600 meters that I can hit with accuracy and precision, so long as my eyes are working, and it's the Lee Enfield rifle. Out of all those fancy schmancy rifles that I showed you today, that's probably the one I'd grab. But if I'm just going to go hunting, and I know I've got targets between, you know, 50 and 300 meters, I'm going to go hunting, it might be the Howa Alpine, Mountain Alpine. If I'm going to be out on a range shooting a competition, whether it's a service rifle competition or something to that effect, I'm probably going to bring the CTR, Tikka CTR. And so that kind of makes me wonder, with those 3 choices, where does the Arctic fit in? A rifle that is horrifically expensive, $3,000 retail. I mean, after taxes, I should say. Is it really worth it? You know, ultimately, only you can decide. I think it's a fantastic rifle. I love it. But it's interesting that it still comes in 4th place with all of those different rifles. They're all fantastic quality rifles. I love all of them. But I just wish that they were a little bit more affordable, if you know what I mean. Beautifully accurate rifle. But for me, it just doesn't have the flexibility that I need in the sighting system with that rear H&K style rear sight. Now that's what they went with. The Colt Canada of C19, the Tikka ARCTIC is the civilian variant of that. There are some differences between the 2 rifles. Maybe one day I'll get together with a ranger and we'll just compare the 2, see what the little tiny nuances of variation is between the 2 rifles. That might be an interesting video to make. But if I had to grab one rifle and go, it'd be the Lee Enfield. Hope you enjoyed the video, folks. Cheers, and as always, Maple Leaf out. If this kind of content interests you, consider supporting my channel by becoming a subscriber on Patreon or making a donation on PayPal. Also, you can find all of the associated links that you need on my website, riflechair.com, including some cool swag. So thank you very much for watching, and thank you to all of my Patreons subscribers. Without you, videos like this would not be possible.